Welcome back into halftime here on ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com. About to welcome in Parker Fleming from Grizzly Bear Blues, a part of SB Nation. You can follow him on Twitter at Parka_Flocka. Great Twitter name, by the way. Writes all things Grizzlies, NBA, and is definitely more knowledgeable about all things NBA and NBA drafts than I am. So I thought it would be a perfect fit to talk NBA draft as it is on tonight. And you can listen to that starting at 6 on all of these ESPN Arkansas stations. Parker, before we get into Moses Moody, who I know you're extremely high on, and the NBA draft, it's going to reach 100 degrees here today in the River Valley in Fort Smith, Arkansas. How hot is it in the Bluff City?
It has to be. I know we're on a heat advisory right now, so even if it's like mid to high 90s, it's probably still like a 105, 108 heat index. So it is absolutely scorching here. But luckily, I have an extremely busy work day, and a lot of my stuff requires me to be inside, so I don't have to worry about being outside or anything for this.
Well, that's good, because the day is not the day that you want to be working outside. So we're going to go ahead and start with Moses Moody, who you seem to be extremely high on. I read your evaluation on him on Grizzly Bear Blues. I think y'all had him at the 7th spot on y'all's pre-draft mock up the other day. What about him gets you excited and wants you to be able to watch him night in and night out with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, for sure. Before we start, we had him 7th on our consensus big board rankings. I actually had him 5, so I had the consensus top 4 of, Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs. And I think Moses Moody is the 5th best prospect in this draft. For one, I think he's incredibly safe. I think at the bare minimum, you're going to get a solid rotation player who is going to be in your rotation when it crunches down to like 7 to 8 guys when you get into the playoffs. And, we just watched this playoffs in these finals where guys like Chris Middleton and Mikal Bridges just played massive roles for their teams and their successes. And I'm just thinking, why can't Moses Moody do that? I'm not going to act like I watched every single Arkansas game or anything, but because you know how it is with the Grizzlies, there's
a lot is going
games. You can only watch so much basketball. But from what I saw, one of my biggest pet peeves with college basketball is just the spacing and the low assist numbers and stuff. And so I'm like, okay, Moses Moody's efficiency wasn't the best, but he can create those shots, and I think he's also just going to look better in NBA spacing around NBA playmakers. And so when you factor in those tools and stuff, he can score at 3 levels. He has an insane wingspan where he could defend positions 1 through 3. And I think one of the biggest things that entices me the most, and the reason why I'm comfortable putting him in the same breath as guys like Mikal Bridges or Chris Middleton, is he has such potential as a live dribble creator at age 19 years old. Through Synergy Sports, he was in the 98th percentile in pick and roll efficiency. So just having another wing like that who can create for himself or others out of the pick and roll, he can spot up when necessary, and he can defend across the floor. He's long. I think he's just the kind of guy that you want next to John Morant going forward when you're trying to build a championship contender. I think he's just a plug-and-play guy. He'd be a plug-and-play guy quite early, actually. And, I just think that his upside is higher than people are giving him credit for. And I would be absolutely ecstatic if he ended up on the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh,
I would too, because it gives me a reason here over in ESPN Arkansas to continue to follow and passionately watch and then get to talk about our Grizzlies because of Moses Moody being on the team. So where would you see him falling in line on that Grizzlies team as far as, I guess, priority? I mean, obviously he's going to be below Ja because Ja's a budding superstar and could one day be a top 5 player in all of the NBA. Does he fall, if he works out the way that you're talking about, does he fall into that number 2 spot, or are the Grizzlies still holding onto Jaren or Dylan or somebody like that to fit that number 2, and Moses kind of just be a role player?
I mean, obviously, Jaw's number 1. You've already taken care of that. I still think Jaren's your number 2. I mean, you saw what he did in the bubble, and you saw what we saw in his second season. I mean, he averaged 17 points a game, and he shot nearly 40% from 3 on almost 7 attempts a game. Like, we don't see that from many 7-footers, yet alone 20-year-old 7-footers. I know last year probably soured a lot of people because when he did come back, he looked a little rusty, and I think that was given. We should have managed our expectations. We should have focused more on the flashes of what Jaren Jackson was doing rather than the effects of rust. So I think he's still number 2. But I really think of it as a kind of like if Moses Moody pans out the way he does and he ends up in Memphis, I think it's more of a 3A, 3B with Dylan Brooks. And honestly, I think drafting Moody helps out Dylan Brooks even more because you have another guy that can stop the opposing team's best perimeter players. And you know all the great teams, they have 2 very strong perimeter weapons, whether that's like a point guard and a wing or just 2 wings. And just getting another stopper like Moody in there potentially would make life easier on Dylan Brooks. But also, too, offensively, Brooks' burden won't be as much. And that's probably why you see a lot of people complain about his shot selection and stuff like that, because he's one of the only wings on the team with good size that can create his own shot. And I'm going to throw out the stat on Dylan Brooks because, I mean, Drew, you followed me for so long. You know how much of a fan I am of Dylan Brooks.
Oh, yeah.
He was second in the league in corner threes behind Seth Curry. Shot like 56% on corner threes. So if you're being able to take away some of those off the dribble shots that you're getting Brooks to take and replace some of those with more stationary jump shots, primarily in the corner, it's just going to enhance the Grizzlies' offense more. And just with a guy like Moody, he's just going to ease burdens across the floor. Whether it's for John Morant, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, he's just a very malleable role player to have who can grow into a guy that could potentially be your 3rd or 4th guy.
And before we get into more draft talk, I've talked about it multiple times this week and how I don't think I can bring myself to root for Steven Adams with the trade and trading Giannis Valanciunas to New Orleans to bring in Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams. Do you think you can forgive him? We'll all be forgiven just like the city somewhat forgave Mario Chalmers when he became a Grizzly. Do we forgive Steven Adams for the Game 6 and having the most punchable face in the world that Zebo just had to?
I mean, I forgave Chalmers quite quickly, but granted, Chalmers came to Memphis while I was at Ole Miss, so I kind of got rid of my Memphis animosity really quickly. And for one, with Adams, let's wait and see if he's even on the roster on opening night.
That's true.
First. But here's the thing. Let's not be mad at Steven Adams. Why not we be mad at the NBA for suspending Zach Randolph? I mean, it's playoff basketball. I mean, you watch Zebo for almost a decade, man. Yeah. You know that he gets into some beefs down low, and Adams was one of those beefs, and they got into it. Randolph pulled a punch, and the NBA acted on it. So I blame the NBA more than anything. I could get myself behind Adams because, you know, there's just always those little, like, Twitter tidbits where it's like there's, like, some clip or some quote from Steven Adams that's just absolutely off the wall and hilarious. I think, too, like, we relish, like, those kind of guys in Memphis who they work hard, they do the dirty work, and if Steven Adams embraces the city, they're going to embrace him, too. I mean, I kind of compare it to, like, Joakim Noah, but better in that sense. Like, he's just going to be that crazy big man who's just going to do wild stuff, and he's going to capture everybody's hearts. I think we can forgive Steve Adams. If we forgave Mario Chalmers from literally preventing this city from having a national championship, I think we can forgive Steven Adams for this.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Mario Chalmers took the innocence of my childhood when I was in the Alamo Dome back in 2008. And if I can forgive him, and the most of the city can. I think we all can. So with this draft, it's been clear cut, I think, since probably April that Cade Cunningham was going to be the number one overall pick. Do you think that he has the highest ceiling and that's why he's the number one? Or does he possibly feel like could be a number one bust at some points? Because I think he's great, but I haven't fully bought in to Cade Cunningham being the guy.
I think Cade Cunningham's awesome. He fits kind of like what the NBA prioritizes, that big wing that can initiate the offense. He can create his own shot. People throw out Luka, but I'm very close to putting Luka in that player category where it's unfair to compare anyone to Luka.
Mm-hmm.
I only have like maybe 4 or 5 players I can say that for, but I think Cade Cunningham's extremely safe. He's going to be a really good player for a long time, and I think there is a world out there where he backs it up and he's the best player in the draft class. And I think he's an absolute game changer potentially for Detroit. I will say, though, I'm not going to say he has the highest ceiling. I think Jalen Green has the highest ceiling in this draft just because of what he can do offensively. I think he could be one of the best 2 or 3 offensive players in the league in 5 years. I mean, he's just an absolutely electric player to have on, especially if he can develop more of his on-ball stuff and be more of a playmaker and an initiator. I think he could be absolutely awesome. Evan Mobley, if his defense translates, and you have this 7'1" big man with just incredible mobility. He's a very good passer. I think I saw something today where he has the second highest assist percentage, the percentage of possessions that results in his assists.
Mm-hmm.
The second highest one among the centers since the 2008 draft. So I think he could be absolutely generational. It's just one of those things where it's an absolutely loaded draft class here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, too, we would have gotten to see more of Cade Cunningham's greatness if he would have gone to a school like Duke or Kansas or Kentucky. Heck, even if he got to play in Eric Musselman's system in Arkansas, I think you would have gotten to see more of what makes Cade so unique. I don't think there's any bust potential with him. I think at the very worst case, he's a very strong number 3 on a contending team, but his ceiling, he's like that number 1 option on a championship team.
We're speaking with Parker Fleming from Grizzly Bear Blues, part of SB Nation. You can follow him on Twitter at Parka_Flocka. We are up against the break. I do want to get in just 2 real quick ones. First off, why does Luka Garza not apparently fit into today's NBA at being such a great college player? And you have one guy that you got to bet the house on to be a Hall of Famer out of this draft class. Who are you going with?
I'll keep mine with Garza short and sweet. I don't know if his offensive impact will be able to overcome the defensive liability, especially in an NBA system that's a lot more spread out. And if I had a bank on anybody to be a Hall of Famer, it's too easy to say anybody in the top 3, right?
Yeah. Be imaginative.
I want to go with Jalen Suggs. I know he's the consensus number 4. Kind of a cop-out. But I think the dude's just an absolute gamer. He's built for the big moments. I think he could just have an awesome career. Even if he's not the best player in this class, I just think that he's a big game player. We saw it in the tournament. I would bet the house on Suggs being a Hall of Famer from outside of anybody's in the top 3.
Parker, I appreciate you joining me, especially on such a late notice. We'll definitely have to have you on again as we get closer to the NBA season. Sound good?
Absolutely. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Parker. That's Parker Fleming from GrizzlyBearBlues.com, part of SB Nation. Before we get to the break, As you've heard during the rejoins, this show today is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings' new classic chicken sandwich, hand-breaded chicken with pickles, mayonnaise, and a side of fries, all for only $5.99 limited time offer. And some good things, they do happen after dark. Half off late night food from 9 o'clock till close. Get half off ultimate nachos, chips, and salsa, crispy buffalo chicken tots, and the dirty dozen tots. Be sure, man, my tongue today. I thought I got it under control. Be sure to visit all your local B-Dubs locations, Fort Smith, Conway, Little Rock, Sherwood, and in Jonesboro. When we come back, a little Julio Jones news, and we'll wrap up the show here on this scorching Thursday. So don't go anywhere on ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com.
Buffalo Wild Wings, roar!